Welcome to Open House, the real estate and mortgage show on News Talk 580 CFRA.
With Frank Napolitano and Paul Rushforth, here is Steve Gregory.
Welcome to the long weekend.
It's a nice long weekend.
Gonna need a long weekend to finish all this coffee.
Oh, yeah. We had a little mishap at Starbucks this morning. I got here early as usual and bought breakfast like I always do. And Frank didn't see my vehicle because my girlfriend took it after she dropped me off. And so Frank went and bought breakfast. So there's a lot of coffee to go around here in the studio.
Yes. I thought it was her vehicle. It's white.
Oh, here we go.
Anyway.
Capri's, let's not talk about white vehicles, please, Capri.
If you don't hear us for a while, we'll be making pit stops for the entire hour.
Yes. Especially at your age, Steve, for that bladder. Ooh.
Hey, Paul, did I see that the real estate commissions are tariff-free?
Tariff-free?
No tariffs on real estate commissions?
Well, they should be. They should be.
Do you notice that every second advertisement now is no tariffs, no tariffs? It's like, all right.
Yeah.
I don't think I heard the word tariff until 2025.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, it's everywhere.
It's got to be the most overused word in the English language
but it's
right now.
Donald Trump's favorite word.
And now he's back at it again.
Yes, he is.
That's not
like,
good.
shut up.
No, but it impacts us. The problem is that it impacts us. It impacts how people feel. You know, the one thing, Bank of Canada put out a little, commentary as to why they're doing what they're doing. And the word uncertainty hit the record for how many times it was in that.
Yeah, more than tariffs.
Yeah, more than tariffs. The word uncertainty is everywhere because that's the problem. Right now, we live in a world of uncertainty because there used to be a path, and you knew which path, whether it was a Republican government, the Democrats, but liberals, conservatives, it doesn't matter. You knew which path you were going down. And now it's like it's the wild, wild west. It's absolutely incredible, and how it's impacting real estate in both Canada and the U.S., how it's impacting mortgage rates. I mean, he wants mortgage rates to come down, but everything he does goes against interest rates coming down, but he just thinks that he can make interest rates come down despite what he's doing.
Well, they just lost their last AAA rating.
They did. But he doesn't think that's important, which is absolutely absurd.
Listen, my message to buyers and sellers this week, and I've been dealing with a lot of them, is because of all the uncertainty right now, there's a feeling out there that, oh my God, we're going through this now. We got the tariffs, we got this. But let's be honest. What have we done in the last 5 years? We've had nothing but uncertainty and issues and things thrown at us. From COVID on. And we've adapted. We've weathered the storm, and we are weathering the storm. Our real estate market, and I know last week I was a little bit more cautious on the market. And I said, it slowed down a little bit. It wasn't a great... This was a great week. The market is starting to pick up again. I know Greg's with us right now, and we're supposed to be shooting videos, and it's been 3 weeks in a row we can't shoot any videos because he's so busy shooting houses right now for our listings, which is a great problem to have. And things are selling. Things are starting to sell, which is amazing. They always were selling, but this week, even though we have all these issues in the economy, even though we have all these issues thrown at us, even though we have the Trumpisms, we are adapting and we are winning is really what's happening here. I can only talk about the Ottawa real estate market. We are winning here in the Ottawa real estate market. And it's one of the first markets that we've been a part of in a long time where buyers are winning and sellers are winning. Usually somebody has to win. It's a buyer's market. It's a seller's market. It's a balanced market. But I feel like buyers and sellers are winning. And some of the sellers that feel like they're not winning, I've had this conversation at length with them. And I've said, guys, listen. We went from pre-COVID, where our sale price was X, and we went through COVID, where our sale price went through the roof. Yes, have we come down a little bit? Absolutely. But if we didn't go through what we went through with our price acceleration during those COVID months, we would be talking about way less of an average sale price. Our average sale price is still through the roof because of what we went through. Yes, it's come down a little bit. So, and one guy I was talking to this week, I was pricing his home at about $950, and he was like, I feel like I could have got 1.1 during those COVID months. And I was like, you know what? You probably could have. But guess what? If we didn't go through that time period, you and I'd be having a conversation right now that your house is worth probably $799, $800.
But then the home he would have bought at that time would have been the same craziness. So again, once you're in the market, we've always said once you're in the market, you're in the market. So you're going to take advantage of the big hikes, just like you're going to feel it when the prices come down. But you're in the market already. Yeah. So you have nothing to worry about. It's for the ones that are coming into the market.
Yeah, very few.
They're the ones that unfortunately are paying the price for what happened during COVID, because now a townhouse that you could have gotten prior to COVID for $400,000 now is in the fives.
Yeah. Well, we had our one-offs too, Frank. Like, you know, I dealt with
one-offs.
I dealt with a seller this week who unfortunately bought her property right at the height. Like, I'm talking the height, and she paid something over $5. We got an offer in the low 4s this week, and that's just the reality. Now, that does suck, but
is it a condo townhome?
It's a condo. Yeah, it's a condo. And you know, the offer is the fact that she has to stomach probably anywhere from a $70,000 to an $80,000 loss on this condo. If she didn't have to sell it, I would have said, you know what, don't sell it. Like, keep it. It will come back. But sometimes people who bought in that period have to sell. And those are the only people that are really struggling in today's market. Other than that, people are winning in today's market. And so my message to a lot of people is, don't focus on these tariffs, and I know it's hard. I'm not saying these tariffs are nothing. I'm saying don't focus on all the negative right now. Look at all the positives, and homes are selling, homes are listing, buyers are getting great prices, sellers are getting good prices. It's just the market is a solid market. It's not bad. It's not good. It's solid is what I'm telling you.
We've heard so much about, tariffs for the last little while. I think people are just fed up with it now. I think they're almost ignoring it. It's like, I got to move on with my life.
I don't know that they're ignoring it because it's still part of their daily lives. And now you saw them, you know, one of the biggest grocery chains in Canada, Loblaw, start to warn us that be careful over the next few weeks. You're going to start to see price hikes in certain food products that's going to impact. So the everyday family that's just barely hanging on now all of a sudden is going to see food prices go back up again. Despite the fact that fuel charges are down, which should mean that delivery to the stores should be down, and that should cut some of the costs, but we're not. Consumers feel like they're not seeing it. So you really look at the consumer sentiment these days, they feel like they're being taken advantage of over the top on everything pretty well. And that's the problem, is I think that the sentiment and the way Canadians are feeling. And now if you've got a mortgage coming up for maturity, it's great. If you bought in the fall of 2020 or if you owned a home prior to 2020, the value of your home is significantly higher. And that's great that you've got more equity. But it doesn't make you feel great to know that the cost of your mortgage is likely going up unless you increase the amortization, which to some people, it's like we had a plan. Our plan was to have our mortgage paid off by the time we turned 57. If we increase it by 5 years, now we're up to 62. But, you know, I try to calm them down a little bit and say, but I don't think you imagine that you'd have this much equity in your home at this stage. So, you know,
plus that's only on paper, right? You can
is on paper.
You can still put more down.
Well, you could, but you know, people are basically living paycheck to paycheck. There's more and more people not saving as much as they used to, and that's the concern for some people. Like they're getting closer to their retirement age, and they're not saving at the same level that they used to.
Yeah, it is tough, and that's I don't want to downplay that. You know, don't stay positive.
Reality.
Stay positive. Forget about the tariffs. You know,
but you got to move on at some point.
You have to, but the reality is there are some people losing their jobs because of the tariffs. There are people who are paycheck to paycheck because of the tariffs. There are some people who are really struggling because of these tariffs. So there's no downplay on these tariffs. We will get through that, is what I'm saying. Like, you know, during COVID, the world was ending. I mean, we got through COVID. You know, I'm not to diminish or downplay COVID because it was terrible and dangerous.
Yeah, it was devastating.
It was devastating, absolutely. But we got through it, and now we're in these tariffs and in this uncertainty and in these price wars, and we're seeing prices go up on everything. We will get through this. We will get through.
How does the market look now compared to the average mid-May?
I would say that when the numbers come out at May, I think they're going to be much stronger than what we are expecting and maybe forecasting. I know as a company, we are having a very strong May.
Better than April?
We're stronger than April. April was tough, though. Keep in mind, you know, we had the uncertainty of the tariffs on, tariffs off, tariffs on. And of course, then we had the election. You know, we didn't have awesome weather in April. And so April was tough. I mean, we were even on sales. But when you look at the real estate board, number of sales in April were down 11.2%. That's kind of drastic. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to have a much stronger Ottawa real estate board-wise, a much stronger May. I know as a company, we're going to have a strong May. And I think we sold 65, 70 homes last May. We're going to beat that this year. So we're having a strong May. And I like to think that an indication of how we're doing usually will indicate how the market's doing as well. So I believe that it's going to be a strong May when the numbers come out.
And the weather plays a big part. You're right. Yeah. Because you noticed this week the psych of people, like how much happier they were with the warm weather, the blue sky. It plays a big part. And I think, on sunny weekends and open houses, my God, you used to get 20, 30 people at an open house. I don't know if that's still happening today. And only because now technology, you can look at the majority of the house, and if you see that there's parts that you don't like of it, you don't even bother going, where before it wasn't as much. But the weather plays a big part. In a good weather month, I think you see sales numbers go up because people are happy to go out and look at homes and are feeling good about themselves, where when the weather is like this and it's cloudy and gray for a number of days, I think people just don't want to go out, and their psyche is different.
100% agree. 100% agree.
Busiest month for you, Greg?
It's been pretty busy, pretty steady. I think we're on par from last May for sure. We'll do, as Paul said, we'll do more. I'll shoot more this May than last May by probably a dozen maybe extra shoots. Yeah, it's been good.
Is this the busiest you've been, though, say in the last 2-3 years?
No, not in the last 2-3 years, but certainly this year. Yeah. Since last September for sure. We've just noticed this trend. Obviously going through December, it's a quiet month in December. We were a little quieter, I think, than we expected in January and February. But April, May have just been, the trend's just going up and up. I'm shooting more. Yeah,
because I hear you whining a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
To show you how busy he is, so Greg usually shoots during the day and then gets up super early. I'm up at 5, usually 5:30 in the morning, and Greg's usually, Greg and I were chatting at 5:45 the other day. He was looking for my visa number, but he usually about 6 o'clock in the morning sends out the listings that he shot the day before. Today it was like 3 he sent out. Yesterday it was 4 he sent out. So every day he's sending out 3 or 4.
That's it?
So,
3 or 4?
Some days it's more, but
the days are longer.
A lot of driving.
You should be doing 6 or 7.
But it's every single day he's
So
shooting.
are you carrying more than you were last year?
Well, we're carrying well over 100 right now, over 100 listings, which is a lot. It's a lot to manage. I mean, most people carry a few listings. We're carrying over 100, so we're carrying a lot.
But the board is carrying a lot, right? Like the listings are up. A year ago, I think 2,000. Yeah. Am I right that maybe we're in the 2,000s a year ago? We went through quite a long phase where it was like
not
1,500 to 2,500, depending on.
At the active listings at the end of April were almost 5,000 listings on the market. So the listings are up, 50%. So the listings are way up.
I think the most we ever had, if I remember right, is 11 or 12,000.
We did have 11, 12, 13,000 one year. And listen, there was one year we had so many listings, and our expiry rate, like, when you're carrying so many listings and you have like a 10 to 15% expiry rate, listings expiring, when you're listing 500-600 homes that we were doing, that's a lot of expiries to carry. It's tough. It's tough.
Are there more listings than coffee in the studio?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I seem to be buying it every week, so I should know.
521-TALK, 521-8255. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Paul Rushforth here, Frank Napolitano here. And what do we think of the introduction of Bill 17, where it looks like collection of development charges is going to be deferred until occupancy?
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's still there, though.
No, they just introduced it this week.
I know, but the charge is still going to be there.
Yeah, but at least you won't have to pay up front.
Well, what's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Still paying for
the builder's still paying for it.
But they can get shovels in the ground.
Yeah,
without having to pay.
It would have been nice. So I met with Charles Clement yesterday out in Hawkesbury, and we were talking about the GST program for first-time home buyers. The Liberals are eliminating GST on first-time home buyers up to $1 million.
I don't think it's passed, though, yet. Right?
No, but it will. It looks like, I mean, when you had our guest in a couple weeks ago, she seemed very confident that it was going to pass. So if that happens, that's amazing for first-time home for builders, for first-time home buyers. And then there was talk that they were going to get rid of development charges on multi-units, right? So that's multi-units is also for builders is a row of townhomes, is a row of condos. So that would have been great for Charles as well. But if they're still charging them for it, but not until closing, whatever. Like sure, they might get some shovels in the ground faster, but it would have been nice if they just eliminated those development charges.
That'll never happen.
No, it won't.
It's less cash outlay. No, but they don't have to eliminate it. They just got to lessen it. Because for the last dozen years, it continues to go up so quickly that now, if we're truly saying we need to put whatever it is, 3 million homes up in the next 7 years, whatever they predict that number is, and we're well below that target right now, well below it, well, then how do you do that? The only way to do that, listen, prefab homes might help, but at the end of the day, it's the development charges that are holding builders back. It's the fact that the homes have gone up so much to be able to sell them that they're scaring first-time home buyers. So we need lower interest rates and we need prices of homes to come down, new builds to come down at least, so that it gives hope to young Canadians to be able to get into.
But then you would
There's a
need the
problem.
provincial or federal government to eat the development charges, right? Because municipalities aren't going to do
Well,
it.
the municipalities can't do it, right? Because keep in mind, development charges also go towards things like roads and paths and parks and things like that and shrubs and everything. So I can get it that they need all that. And builders usually cough up a pretty penny when they're building in a subdivision to accommodate that. But I know one of the subdivisions right now that Charles is building in, they're looking to double their development charges. Well, guess what that does? That now gets added onto the price, which now goes back to the consumer who's already struggling in paycheck to paycheck. And now that new home goes from $525 to $560 because it has to absorb those development charges. So someone has to develop them. Or has to absorb them. I get that. And so if it's not,
but at least with them being delayed, they're not out of pocket as they're digging. You know?
They will still be, and it still won't help the pricing of those new builds.
No, but it might help the builders.
It might help the builders initially to get shovels in the ground. And I'll tell you that right now, it is so expensive for a builder to get shovels in the ground that a lot of builders, especially small and medium-sized builders, they're struggling to push forward. I think, besides the huge builders like, the Mintos and the Cardells and all these Madamies, all these massive builders who are going to continue to go, you get the sort of the medium to almost larger builders like Charles. I haven't seen too many of them pushing forward like this. This guy just keeps going, building and building and building.
Yeah.
It's good to see, though. It's good to see. But the problem with that is he takes a big risk, right? As he builds fast like this, he needs certain number of doors sold in order to get financing for that project. And if he doesn't have those doors sold, most builders say, well, I can't continue building until those doors are sold.
And whose responsibility would that be?
Well, that would be my responsibility to sell those. And that was part of our meeting yesterday. Charles was like, Paul, I'm going forward with this building, but I'm not getting the financing. So guess who's paying for all this out of their pocket? He goes, I'm paying for this. So unless you get me some of those sales, I'm paying out of my pocket. So it was one of those meetings where it was like, things are going great, Paul, but I'm going to conk you over the head right now and get me some sales.
We should call development charges tariffs so that it pisses people off more. Just change the name to tariffs because essentially that's
if they want to build this many homes, though, we need some extreme changes.
Extreme changes.
Like massive. Like this, it's got to be a massive overhaul and rethinking of the whole, okay, how do we build homes? And I know that
at least for the next couple of years, right?
At least for the next 5 years.
This is gone. This is gone. This is gone.
Yes.
Let's
get
go.
the homes built.
I know there's some areas, and I'm driving through Orleans the other day, and there's some areas that I know they were bought by a builder eons ago. They have been cleared, ready to build on, probably 2 years ago. And there's been no shovel in the ground for 2 years.
A lot of that was rates, though, right?
Well, a lot of it was rates, but some of these are big builders that rates, regardless, they're still going to go ahead and build. I know lots of little areas that have been cleared, ready to build on 2 years ago that still hasn't started. And I know some of it had to do with rates. I know some of it has to do with potentially demand, but a lot of it has to do with red tape.
So how much tax revenue of the government's on all phases lost by that land sitting empty instead of homes being on there? Property taxes, land transfer taxes, all the HST on all the materials to build those homes, all the jobs where you're deducting income tax. If you start adding that up, that's where you make that money back. Unfortunately, greed gets in the way sometimes.
So where is this meeting with all the levels of government? Right down to municipal?
Well, we don't even have a budget. Okay, that's another disappointment this week. How could we not have a budget ready to go? If you're a brand new government, and we're going through what we're going through today, I think it's disappointing to see that a budget's not going to come out until the fall or maybe spring of next year. That just seems wrong on so many levels right now.
But if you don't have a job, how do you budget?
If you don't have but he's got a job.
No, I'm talking about like if you're unemployed right now.
Yes.
Okay, I got to get my budget together. How am I going to budget if I don't know what's going to happen?
Well, you better figure out whether you own a home or not and how much equity you have in it and whether you should continue to own a home. And that's one of the toughest conversations, and I imagine Paul's got to have it too, and realtors got to have it too, when someone calls you and you determine that they really should not be in that home. They cannot afford to be in that home for one reason or another. Their employment income is gone, or they've just been living above their means. Their interest rate's going up, and that's a really, really tough conversation to have with someone to say, I think you're in over your head, and I know you've got some equity in the home. We can pull some of that equity out if you want. It's going to be very expensive. Or you can just sell the house and take the equity that you've built already and put it in a bank account. And therefore, if you invested properly and depending on how much equity you have, that would subsidize the cost of living for you for renting, a condo or a townhouse, whatever you need right now.
In that situation,
until you get back on your feet.
You're better to get out and then get back in, right?
Well, it depends on circumstances. I mean, if you've got lots of equity and you've lost your job and you think it's 6 months to 12 months, if you've got a home that's $800,000 and you only owe $200,000, well, then borrow $50,000. You should be able to borrow the $50,000, and in the meantime, that'll help you carry you through the lean times until you get back on your feet and you've got a job. But if you're somebody who owns a $500,000 home and you owe $400,000 on it, well, now you don't have that leverage to be able to pull some equity out. It's very difficult to pull any equity out in that circumstance. You can't fall behind on your mortgage payments. You can't fall behind on all your other commitments because now you're not going to be able to borrow anymore. So sometimes you do have to make that really difficult decision, which is put that house on the market, sell it. If you've got $70,000, $80,000 left at the end of the day, you've got that to live on until you get back on your feet, and then you can go look for a home.
Don't wait until it's too late.
Well, you're better. You're better to unload your house and get out of that property before you ruin your credit.
Yeah.
Do not ruin your credit.
And you'll never get back in.
No, and listen, the worst way to ruin your credit is get behind on your mortgage. Yeah. Do not get behind on your mortgage. So if you can't pay it, get out.
521-TALK, 521-8255. We will be right back. Welcome back. Frank Napolitano here, Paul Rushforth here, and Margaret here too joining us. Hello, Margaret.
Hi.
Good morning.
I have a question about the first-time home buyer. My niece, her father passed away, and he left everything to her. So in the estate was his house. She sold that house, but it was in the estate, and now she wants to buy a house. Mm-hmm. And she's wondering if she could still qualify for the first-time home buyer, or because that house was her dad's, does that disqualify her?
I don't think so. I think it's a good question to ask a real estate lawyer, but at the same time, from my opinion, if her name was not on title and it was in the title of the estate or her dad, then she didn't own a home. So as far as I'm concerned, she's a first-time home buyer.
Yeah, and I, as much as Margaret, I loathe to say this. I believe Frank is right, and I, this is a definite question for either an accountant or a real estate lawyer. But
you're never on title, right?
Well, no, she's never on title. She inherited it, but she was never on title. So my thought is that, yes, she would still qualify as a first-time home buyer, but I would definitely reach out to David Leith is a great real estate lawyer. David Leith, you can reach out to David. He'd be able to answer that for you.
Okay. I have one other question that you might be able to answer, too. She's going to buy the home with her boyfriend. Now, he has a property, and they're going to go 50-50. She wants to take a mortgage, and he's going to take a mortgage or whatever. And so, but he's not a first-time home buyer, but, she is, we hope. Does that disqualify her as well?
No, not at all. Actually, she gets the first-time home buyer benefits, but if she's buying with someone who's already owned the home, then she only gets half of them. So an example is there's a land transfer tax rebate of up to $4,000. So because he's already owned the home, that land transfer tax rebate would only be $2,000. She's a first-time home buyer. She can also withdraw money from an RSP. So again, if she's planning to do this beyond the 90-day mark, it might make financial sense for her to, if she's got some money sitting in her bank account, deposit it. Number one, I would do that first-time home buyer plan. I'd put $8,000 in that because then you could take that out tax-free. I would do the RSP contribution, especially if she's been earning an income over the last number of years and she hasn't taken advantage of putting money in the RSP. There's an opportunity there to be able to put some money in the RSP so that her income this year, maybe she can retrieve all of her income tax that she pays throughout the year by withdrawing that money as a home buyer withdrawal as well. So, there's a couple of things she can do, but she certainly still qualifies as a first-time home buyer, despite the fact that she's buying with someone who already owns a home.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Margaret.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.
You know what, Frank? I disagree with Greg. You were not dumb. You were a very smart man. I disagree with Greg. That was a great answer.
I know Greg doesn't think that, so that's okay. Greg,
how did I get thrown under the bus on that?
Oh, you're just the first one I looked at, Greg. Sorry.
I'm out of here.
Greg.
So let's go over this again.
I think a raise is in order for that.
Let's go over this again. What qualifies as a first-time home buyer now?
Anybody who's never owned a home, and technically, if you read the wording, anywhere in the world. But I don't know how a government would know that if you owned a home in Italy or somewhere else. So that's up to you whether you say you've never owned a home or not. But Also, what qualifies a first-time home buyer is somebody that's recently gone through a separation or a divorce. So,
is there a time period that has to go past? Or
it's not the time period specifically, as long as you've got a separation agreement. So that's the key as far as the government's concerned, whether you qualify as a first-time home buyer. Now, you're not going to get the land transfer tax rebate. The land transfer tax rebate in Ontario is all about if you've never owned a home. So if you've owned a home, you don't get that. It's not a first-time home buyer. It's the fact that you've never owned a home. Now, on the RSP side, if you took money out of an RSP and you haven't finished paying it back yet, so you've got 15 years to pay it back, then that disqualifies you from taking additional money from the RSP. You have to be caught up on paying back. So in a scenario like that, you could pay back the RSP, and then if you've got money in an RSP, you can now pull it back out. But you've got to at least have paid off that home buyer loan first.
And it doesn't have to stay in the RSP for any length of time, right?
No, well, 90 days. Any contribution into an RSP needs to stay there for 90 days before you can withdraw it for a home buyer. So unlike that first-time home buyer savings plan where you can put the money in one day, take it out the next day, on the RSP side, it needs to be in there for full 90 days before you can withdraw it. So if your closing date is less than that, now there's a 30-day grace period. So 30 days after the closing of your home, you can still take money out of an RSP, but maximum is 30 days. So if your closing date, let's say an example where, you buy a house now and your closing date is August 1st. If you put the money in the RSP now, you can take it out August 28th. As long as you've got the money for the down payment on August 1st, you can still apply to withdraw the money on August 28th from the RSP. So for some people, it's taking it out of their TFSA temporarily to be able to buy the home, and then they want to put the money back in the TFSA kind of thing.
Speaking of closing dates, if you want to get in before school, we're talking go now, huh?
Well, you're almost too late.
We're mid-May, so if you find a place tomorrow and a 3-month closing.
Yeah, you can still do it. I mean, the average closing is anywhere between, 45 and 60 days is probably the average closing. So you can still get in before school, but
45 is quick, eh?
It's quite well. Hey, we've done as little as 7-day closing. Like we've seen that as
Frank
quick as
loves that.
Yeah, but
I
so
don't
do the
mind
lawyers.
it.
The lawyers hate that, right?
Oh,
Because there's a lot of searches that they have to do, so the lawyers hate it. But obviously, we'd give them a heads up. So I'd say, hey, by the way, I'm doing this deal. Can you do it in 7 days? And a lot of times they can pull it off, but it's a struggle.
As long as it's not month end, right?
Well,
month end, they tell you, don't think so.
Especially end of June and end of August. Those are really, really busy times. And I always tell people, do not close on a Friday near the end of August. That's the biggest mistake you can make. Make sure you close on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday in case there's any hiccups. But yeah, if you're looking to get into a new area, to get into a new school, you need to be buying sooner than later. I mean, we're now in the latter parts of May, with the 30, 60-day closing, you're now into, July / into August. So you're
and you want to give yourself a bit of time.
You want to buffer. I mean, you might want to go in there and do some repairs, and it's very common for people to do sort of bridge financing, so they can, they can get into their house for a couple weeks and paint and do some renovations that they want to do. Most people paint regardless, because once couches come off walls, you see dirt all over the walls. You'll see stains, pictures coming off walls, nail holes, TVs coming off walls. So most people paint anyway. So it's very common to bridge those closings for 7, 14.
I like Wednesdays. I always say people, if you can close on a Wednesday, close your other house on the following Wednesday. It gives you the whole weekend. If you can take Thursday, Friday off, go in there, do your work, move on the weekend. You get your friends to help you move on the weekend. And then you've got the Monday, Tuesday, the following week to clean up the old house to make sure that you're ready to hand the keys over.
And
that's not that expensive, I say to them, on the bridge loan side.
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday is obviously a perfect day because if there's any hiccups on closing, I mean, I've seen people try to close on the same day, and I'm like, that is a nightmare. Because if something happens and you have your movers and everything's packed up, and all of a sudden you don't get possession of that new home,
you're homeless.
Well, the movers have a job tomorrow. Yeah. So what happens? I mean, what happens to all your stuff? So definitely don't close on the same day, even if it's a day or two apart. I prefer to see a week, 2 weeks apart so you can do some work, but also in case there's any hiccups. Because sometimes we do see a hiccup where the lawyer can't close it that day. They need to the next day. Sometimes they need 2 days. Well, if you're closing on a Friday, now we're looking at next Tuesday or something like that until you're closing, and that's a problem. Yeah. So try do a closing date on a Tuesday or Wednesday to give the lawyers that wiggle room in case there's any issues.
Let's go to Nepean, a wonderful place to be in, and say hello to Al. Hello, Al.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We are great.
Been a while, Paul. I think it was episode 2 I won.
Oh, there you go. All for Nothing, the TV show. Excellent. How you doing, Al?
I'm awesome.
Good, buddy.
But, Paul, no questions for you this time.
Well, then you're probably not going to get a brilliant answer. That's the problem, Al.
I think Frank might have a couple ideas.
All right, let's see what he has.
We are close to finishing off our mortgage. It's coming renewed. It's being renewed soon, September. We got like $25,000 left on that mortgage.
Okay.
2.5%. I guess we're going to be going up a few percentages on that, eh?
You're likely going up 1.5% to 2%. Yeah, but at least it's only $25,000.
Yeah, and I mean, we're looking so forward to getting that over with, but there's no real other options. The thing is, it's less than a car loan, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're at the end of life of a mortgage, which is something to celebrate.
Oh, we're counting down the days, definitely. Yep. But yeah.
So, question is, what type of mortgage do you take?
Pardon me?
Is your question? What type of mortgage would you take?
Yeah, what would you do?
Okay, so let me ask you, who's your mortgage with? Which bank?
It's with a
credit union.
Yeah, credit union.
Okay, so what are their prepayment privileges? Do you know, 15-20% per year?
I think my wife's been putting extra on it right now, so yeah, there's probably something like that.
Do you remember what the original mortgage amount you took with them is?
I don't know.
So most lenders, if you stay with the same lender, because switching it from one lender to another is virtually impossible when it's only $25,000, because the fees that you incur to switch it would override whatever savings you would get. So
and nobody wants that anyway, right?
No. Well, that's why I'm saying no other bank or lender will pay to switch the mortgage over if it's only $25,000. So you're almost handcuffed to stay with the lender that you're with right now. But the advantage is that your wife will still continue to be able to take advantage of the prepayment privileges. So even if you took a 5-year, I would go for whichever one has the lowest rate, whatever they give you on the lowest rate, regardless, because you could take a 5-year fixed and still pay it off in a year without any penalties. Because if your mortgage originally started at $150,000 and you're allowed 10% a year, that means you're allowed to put $15,000 per year towards the mortgage. Yeah. So you can pay that off in just over a year if you wanted to. Because a day after the first year anniversary, you can put another $15,000, and the two would be $30,000, which is more than what you owe. So,
so the percentage is on the original amount of the mortgage?
If you stay with the lender. If you go to a new lender, then that resets itself. So if you're with your original lender, find out how much your mortgage is. And actually, sometimes it's just to call the lender and say, what are my annual prepayment privileges? And they'll tell you what that dollar amount is. And then, then I would go with whatever mortgage comes with the lowest rate, regardless of what the amount of time is. Because it doesn't matter to you. You'll be able to pay it off in whatever time you choose to pay it off.
Okay, that's good advice then. Is there any negotiating room with these guys on interest rates?
I would say this. Your negotiating power goes up tremendously if you have other banking products with them. So if you just have the mortgage with them, then your negotiating power is not as much, because at $25,000, you're not that important to them.
And they know he can't walk.
Right. They know that it's going to cost you. But if you have all your banking with them, and I say this to a lot of my customers who call me, I say you got to use that as your leverage, because the bank is not giving you their best rate up front. They're trying to get you at a higher rate when they know they've got a lower rate available to you. But if it's just a mortgage, they might let you walk. But if you're pulling your bank account, your RSPs, your investments from them, now all of a sudden that's hitting their bottom line much more severely. So, especially on a mortgage of $25,000, they should be able to give you a great rate, because it really doesn't cost them that much in the end.
Yeah.
Well, how did he do, Al?
Pardon me?
How did he do?
He did great.
And that was all for nothing. It cost you nothing.
So, Al, let me ask you a question. You were episode 2, correct?
Yeah.
So I was nice back then, because I had to get really mean in that show as the seasons went on. So
you have to be yourself.
So you got the nice Paul, but then after that, I had to be a jerk. They made me do it, Al.
Oh, sure they did.
Well, it's kind of funny, Paul, because it was very hot that week and we had no air conditioning.
I totally remember that. It was awful.
I remember you being a little bit of a prima donna there.
No.
I must admit I needed my tent and I needed my fan. I remember Al had no air conditioning, and we were I had to wear jeans and a button down, and it was like 40 degrees and he had no AC. Yes.
Al, nothing has changed. He's still the same.
He's still a prima donna.
You know what, Al?
When we're out in the country, I don't think they like going out there at first either.
You know what? I never thought I'd ever say this on the radio, but it ruined my makeup.
It looks much better in the studio.
Yeah.
Thanks, Al. 521-TALK, 521-8255. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Paul Rushforth here. Frank Napolitano here. Greg is, are you out taking pictures already? You must have appointments today.
Nothing today.
No, it takes the weekend off.
off.
He takes, he's got to work the morning for the radio show, and then he,
Yeah, then you should shoot those videos with Paul today.
Seriously, right? Like, the last time I checked, there's 7 days in a week, and I work all 7 of them,
From 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
It is funny because my office manager, Angie, she's up super early too. So there's a lot of times we're texting each other at like 5:45 and that. And Greg, you must have been shocked the other day. Greg sends me a text, I think it was like 5:35. Hey, I need your Visa number, last 4 digits. Oh, wow, that was quick.
Oh, by the way, what is that?
That was
number?
AI.
Yeah. What is my Visa number?
Yeah.
It's maxed out.
We talked earlier about the condo market. How is it doing now?
It's okay.
Just all right?
Yeah, it's okay. It depends on where you're buying, what you're buying. The only uncertainty right now that we're finding with the condo market is condo fees. We're seeing large condo fees. We're seeing
More so in the high rises?
In the high rises. Because, listen, the more units you have in a high-rise condominium, the bigger risk that those... Yes, you have more people paying for the condo fees, but the bigger risk you then have of condo fees going up because of consumption and things like that. And a lot of times, if it's a newer condo... It's hard to estimate what the costs are going to be. So if you estimate, let's say, 60 cents a square foot for condo fees, and then all of a sudden you realize the usage is way higher than that, and you have to raise the condo fees. Well, there's a lot of people that get into a condo, they get their mortgage, they're right up against the ceiling, and condo fees going up is not what they budgeted for. And when that happens, it's a burn. And that is the problem with condo fees. One, we're seeing it in the States big time right now, especially in Florida with people who are buying condos there. Condo fees are the biggest dark horse that it's hard to budget for. And depending on where you are, how fast a condo is going to go up in price, you're usually seeing the singles that are going up a little bit quicker. But listen, there's a lot of cranes in the sky right now. We have a lot of condos going up. Yeah. Tons. I mean, per capita, Toronto has more cranes in the sky than anywhere in the world. So
the condo market is absolutely in a nosedive there, which is incredible.
It's been like that for a year.
But I wonder if the cranes are there just sitting idle because they just stopped building. Because if all these condos aren't selling and they've got more condo listings than they have, I think, in 30 years, I think I read.
Yeah.
Well, why would somebody be building condos? Because you have to have a pre-sale. Like, you got to get to 70%, I think, in most cases before you can start selling. So I imagine some of those cranes have been sitting idle for a year or two.
They could be, but keep in mind, we have, at one point they wanted 500 immigrants a year coming into Canada.
500,000.
What did I say?
500.
Oh, sorry, 500,000. They tempered it down to 450,000. So now they're coming. But where do most of them go? Toronto, right? And what's affordable in Toronto? Good luck getting a single-family home or even a townhome in Toronto. The most affordable product in Toronto is the condo market. So they will be absorbed. They definitely will. The problem is they've skyrocketed the prices so much that even immigrants coming in, now they're coming in with money, it's still tough to get into that condo market because you're paying a lot of money for a condo in Toronto.
We had that problem a few years ago here, right?
We did. We had lots of builders who had plans for condos. They had cranes ready to rock and roll, and they put their plans on hold.
So what changed here?
Just absorption. I mean, what changed is COVID, right? Like COVID changed. People needed places to live. People were still moving. The market was very robust. Condos were getting absorbed. It was affordable product, so that was being absorbed quite a bit. And with the absorption rate really improved. At one point, there was 2,300 condos on the market, which is crazy. We got down all the way to I think 700 or something like that. So we're the condo market's still somewhat healthy, but it's just average. It's just average right now.
We haven't touched on rates, unchanged, right?
Unchanged pretty well. The bond market, again, little roller coaster, and I call it a child's roller coaster right now where, in the morning could go up 5-7 beeps, in the afternoon it goes down 3 or 4, and then the next day it goes reverse and, it goes down in the morning, tempers a little bit.
Will the credit rating in the States change anything for
It'll
us?
hurt them more than it's going to hurt us. But ultimately, whatever happens in the U.S., unfortunately, transfers to the rest of the world, including Canada.
But we still have our AAA rating.
The bond market, we do. But the bond market's very much reliant on what happens in the U.S. bond market. So the Canadian bond market will follow what happens in the U.S. So inflation numbers came out in the U.S., and they were slightly lower than they anticipated, which was good news. The problem with it, and generally that would drive bond markets down. The problem is that the subset of that was, but this is probably the last month that the inflation number comes down because the tariffs are going to start to hit. And next month and the month after and the month after that, we'll likely see inflation numbers go up in the U.S. In Canada, it comes out this Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's Tuesday. And the expectation is that inflation might go down below 2%.
Wow. Which
opens the door for Bank of Canada to likely drop Bank of Canada Prime on June 4th by 0.25%. But we're all awaiting for Tuesday to see what that number comes in at.
Interesting. Birthdays?
Yep. Birthdays, I got a few. My niece's husband.
Don't sound so happy about it.
Spencer, my niece's husband, Spencer, celebrated his birthday yesterday. Happy birthday to Spencer. Marcus, my little nephew, celebrated his first birthday this week. So happy birthday to little Marcus. And my good friend Renzo Catana, Rico, celebrated his birthday yesterday. So happy birthday to Renzo, Mr. Court Reporting Company that he owns. And he's got the life for sure. So.
And Mr. Primadonna?
Mr. Primadonna right here. Yeah, sorry, let me just fix my makeup. I do have one this week on Wednesday. One of my super agents, Jamie, celebrates a birthday. So happy birthday to Jamie. And I had the pleasure of having a nice dinner with Adam Cote and Angie Poirier last night, and first time out since Nash was diagnosed. So it was nice seeing.
Yeah, Adam told me it cost him way too much.
I was going to
say, I'd like to say it didn't cost him a penny. It
Adam
cost
said
me.
You forgot your wallet again.
That is not what happened. That is not what happened.
I was going to say the only way you could go to dinner with Paul is if he pays. Who else would want to go just for the fun of it?
Oh, Stephen, do we have to end it
That's
that
the way to end the show.
Oh.
But please support local businesses and charities, especially Canadian ones.
And especially me, please.
Yeah.